Months passed, but the memories didn't haunt David like he expected. Some nights were harder than others, but most were filled with a quiet he had forgotten he could enjoy. He packed up the house they once shared, piece by piece, without ceremony.
Noral, no tears.
Just the slow, steady work of letting go. Lily's messages had finally stopped. At first, they came daily, pleading, explaining, bargaining. Eventually, they thinned out to nothing. David never answered a single one. He didn't owe her closure. She had made her choices, and he had made his. The new apartment was small, but it felt bigger than the empty house ever had. No reminders lived in these walls. No history weighed down the air. Just clean surfaces and the quiet hum of a life restarting. He furnished it slowly, choosing things he liked, not what they once agreed on. It was a freedom he hadn't realized he missed. He worked more, hit the gym more. Some weekends he drove out of town with no destination in mind, letting the road stretch ahead without a plan. Every mile between him and the past felt earned. Sometimes he thought about Lily. Not the betrayal, not the night at the hotel, but earlier. The girl he had loved, the one he thought he would grow old with. He didn't hate her. Hatred required energy, and David wasn't wasting any more of that on her. He pitied her, maybe. Pitied what she threw away for something cheap, something easy. Forgiveness wasn't for her. It was for himself. He realized that one quiet Sunday morning, sipping bad coffee on his new balcony, feeling the warmth of the rising sun on his face. He could forgive her without letting her back into his life. Forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. It meant freedom. David smiled, a real one, the first in a long time, and it didn't feel forced. He wasn't the man who stood in that hotel hallway anymore. He wasn't broken. He wasn't angry. He was alive, and for the first time in years, he was living for himself. As he closed the door, the night air hit David harder than he expected as he stepped outside. He climbed into his car without thinking, hands gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. His chest felt hollow. Not broken, not even angry, just empty. He sat there for a long time, letting the weight of everything sink in. When he finally drove off, the city blurred past in a smear of lights and noise he couldn't hear. Lily's face kept flashing in his mind. Not the face from years ago, smiling on their wedding day, but the face from tonight, frozen, exposed, cornered by her own choices. It wasn't sadness David felt. It wasn't rage. It was a strange, cold sense of finality. His phone buzzed nonstop. Messages stacked up faster than he could clear them. Lily's name over and over. He didn't open a single one. He didn't need to hear the apologies, the denials, the bargaining. Everything she could possibly say was already too late. Words didn't heal betrayals. Actions had spoken too clearly. By the time he reached home, the house they had shared felt foreign. Their photos still hung on the walls, smiling ghosts trapped in frames. David stood in the doorway, letting the silence press against him. For a moment, he thought about smashing every picture, burning every memory. Instead, he simply turned off the lights and went to bed. The next morning, his lawyer called. Lily had already responded to the papers. She wasn't contesting the divorce, but she wanted to meet, to talk things through. David refused. There was nothing left to discuss. Trust, once shattered, couldn't be pieced back together, no matter how many apologies were whispered. Mark dropped by later that day. No words needed between them. He just sat with David, the unspoken support louder than anything else. They watched a game neither of them cared about, drinking beers that tasted like nothing. David didn't say it, but he was grateful. Grateful that someone stayed when everything else had fallen apart. As the sun, David waited until after midnight. Every tick of the clock felt heavier than the last. The hotel hallway stretched endlessly as he stood there, papers folded neatly in his hand, the final signature already inked. Mark waited downstairs, ready if anything went wrong. David needed no backup. What was broken couldn't be saved. He listened through the door for a moment. Muffled laughter, clinking glasses, the low hum of voices. No tension, no shame. Just two people wrapped up in their selfish little world, oblivious to the bomb waiting outside. Without hesitation, David knocked. Light footsteps approached. The door creaked open, revealing a man he instantly recognized from the photos. Evan. Smug. Relaxed. The kind of arrogance that only blooms when you think you've gotten away with something. David met his confused stare without a word. From behind Evan, Lily's voice floated into the hallway, carefree, laughing about some private joke. When she stepped into view, the laugh died instantly. Her smile collapsed into a look David would never forget. Guilt, panic, fear, all crashing into one frozen moment. He didn't say anything clever.
No questions.
No demands. He simply extended the envelope toward her. Divorce papers. Simple, final, inevitable. For a moment, she didn't move. Then, hesitantly, she stepped forward, her fingers brushing his as she took the envelope. David's hand stayed steady, his voice even calmer. You don't have to pretend you're working anymore. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Evan looked between them, realization finally dawning on his face, the smugness slipping. David didn't stay to hear excuses. He didn't need to know how it started, who said what, how many lies stacked up behind the first one. The details didn't matter anymore. Without looking back, David turned and walked down the hallway. Each step away from them felt lighter, not heavier. The burden he thought he'd carry forever started to lift with every inch of distance. David didn't sleep that night. He stared at the dark ceiling, hearing Lily's laughter in his mind, the way it had slowly turned hollow over the past months. Morning came heavy. He made coffee he couldn't drink and sat by the window, waiting for Mark's next move. The plan was simple. Mark would follow Lily discreetly, document everything. David wouldn't interfere. He wanted the truth served cold. At noon, Lily texted, heading to the conference now. Long weekend ahead. Love you. The words hit harder than if she'd said nothing. He replied with a simple, good luck. I love you too. Lies hanging in the air between them. By evening, Mark sent photos. Lily entering a hotel downtown, laughing too hard, standing too close to a man David had never seen. Evan Brooks. The name meant nothing yet, but the familiarity in the way Lily touched his arm told David everything. These weren't business partners. There was no work conference, only a weekend of betrayal carefully disguised as duty. David's hand shook as he flipped through the pictures. Lily checking in at the front desk, Evan's hand resting lightly on her lower back, her smiling up at him like she used to smile at David.
No guilt.
No second thoughts. Just easy intimacy. The coldness David had been feeling wasn't paranoia. It was the slow death of their marriage right under his nose. Mark called. They checked into the Grandview Hotel. Room 1412.
She's not working, David.
You ready to move? David's voice barely made it through.
Yeah.
I'm ready. The decision crystallized without drama.
No begging. No dramatic confrontations.
He wasn't going to argue over broken vows. He would show up, hand her the end she earned, and walk away. Pride demanded nothing less. He contacted his lawyer, who prepared the papers in record time.
Divorce.
No settlements. No drawn-out battles. She could keep whatever life she built with Evan. David booked a room across the hall from theirs. Mark would handle logistics. David would handle tea. David never thought he'd question Lily. For 10 years, trust was their foundation. So solid, he never felt the need to check her phone, wonder about her late nights, or question her business trips. She had always been devoted, until lately. It started small, missed dinners, vague answers, a new lock on her phone. Excuses were offered before he even asked. Meetings ran late. Conferences popped up suddenly. She laughed less at home. She kissed him like she was clocking in for a shift. He told himself it was just stress from work. Mark was the first to voice what David tried to ignore. Over beers one night, Mark leaned in and said, "You sure she's just working late?" David laughed it off. Mark didn't. He watched David too closely, waited for the moment the doubt would plant itself. It didn't take long. The following weekend, Lily claimed she had a big project kickoff. She packed light, said she might stay in the city overnight. David hugged her goodbye, the scent of a stranger's cologne lingering faintly on her coat. His stomach knotted. He shrugged it off, but it lingered like a ghost. That night, David sat on the couch, TV droning in the background, staring at his phone. No text from Lily. Hours passed. Midnight came. Then, too. He told himself not to overthink. Mark's words echoed louder each hour. By morning, David cracked. He called Mark. The words tasted bitter. "Can you help me find out?" Mark didn't hesitate. "I'll get you answers," he promised. David hated himself for asking. Hated her for making him ask. The guilt gnawed at him. Maybe he was being paranoid. Maybe this was just what marriage looked like after a decade. Maybe work had simply swallowed her whole. But deep down, he knew there was a difference between distance caused by stress and the hollow silence of betrayal. All day he checked his phone, waiting for updates. Every buzz made his chest tighten. Every silence made it worse. He wanted to believe he was wrong, needed to believe it, because if